Sadira always believed that love was something fragile, like glass, beautiful but easy to break. She learned this not from books or movies, but from watching life quietly pass by outside her bedroom window while growing up. She was gentle by nature, soft, spoken, and deeply emotional, the kind of girl who felt everything a little more than others. She met Ayan on an ordinary afternoon that didn't seem special at first. It was raining lightly, the kind of rain that didn't soak your clothes but stayed long enough to make the world feel slower. They both reached for the same book at a small local library. Their hands touched for just a second, but something shifted inside Sadira's heart. Ayan smiled, apologized politely, and stepped back. That smile stayed with her long after she left the library. They started meeting often after that, sometimes by coincidence, sometimes by choice. Conversations that began with small talk slowly turned into deep discussions about dreams, fears, and the kind of future they both wanted. Ayan was calm, thoughtful, and kind. He listened when Sadira spoke, not just with his ears, but with his heart. For the first time, Sadira felt seen. Love didn't arrive suddenly. It grew quietly between them. It was in the way Ayan remembered the smallest details about her, and in how Sadira felt safe just being herself around him. Months passed, and their bond became unbreakable. When Ayan finally told her he loved her, Sadira cried not because she was sad, but because she had waited her whole life to hear those words said with honesty. They got married on a warm spring day, surrounded by simple decorations and sincere smiles. It wasn't a grand wedding, but it was full of meaning. As Sadira walked toward Ayan, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. Love brought happiness, but it also brought responsibility. When they promised to stand by each other forever, Sadira meant every word. Marriage was not perfect, but it was real. There were days filled with laughter and nights filled with silence. There were misunderstandings, financial struggles, and moments when life felt too heavy. But even on the hardest days, they chose each other. Ayan reminded Sadira that love was not about perfection. It was about staying, even when leaving felt easier. A year later, Sadira found out she was pregnant. She held the test in her trembling hands, tears falling freely as emotions rushed through her. Joy, fear, gratitude, and hope all at once. When she told Ayan, he didn't speak for a moment. Then he hugged her tightly, as if he was holding the future itself. That night, they talked for hours about names, dreams, and the kind of parents they wanted to be. But life doesn't always follow the plans we make with hopeful hearts. During the later months of her pregnancy, Sadira began feeling unusually weak. At first, she ignored it, telling herself it was normal. But the weakness turned into pain, and the pain turned into hospital visits. The doctors spoke carefully, choosing their words like they were walking on broken glass. There were complications, serious ones. Sadira was scared, but she tried to stay strong. Every night, she placed her hand on her belly and whispered promises to her unborn child. She promised love, safety, and a future filled with warmth. Ayan stayed by her side, hiding his own fear so he could be her strength. The day the baby was born was the longest day of their lives. Hours passed like years. When the baby's cry finally filled the room, Ayan fell to his knees in relief. They had a son. He was small, fragile, but alive. Sadira smiled weakly when she heard the cry, her eyes filled with tears of happiness. But her battle wasn't over. Sadira's condition worsened after childbirth. Machines surrounded her bed, and the room felt colder than before. Ayan held her hand, begging her to stay, offering prayers he had never learned how to say before. Sadira looked at him with tired eyes but a peaceful smile. "Promise me," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "that you'll give him a beautiful life even if I'm not there." Ion shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "You'll be there," he said. "We'll do this together." Sadira smiled softly. "Some love," she said, "is meant to live on, even when we don't." That night, Sadira passed away quietly. The world didn't stop, but Ion's did. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ion learned how to live again, not for himself, but for his son. Every time he looked into the child's eyes, he saw Sadira, her kindness, her strength, her love. He told his son stories about his mother, how she loved deeply, how she believed in goodness, and how she was the bravest woman he had ever known. Years later, as Ion watched his son walk into school for the first time, he felt Sadira's presence beside him. Love had not ended with her life. It had transformed, living on through memories, sacrifices, and a child who carried her heart within him. Sadira's promise was kept. Love didn't disappear, it endured.